FM. Mais où l'eau compresseur? You are listening to Radio Teleplanet Compa. If you live in Mattapan, Hyde Park, Rosendale, Dorchester, Boston, and you are in Brockton, Holbrook, Randolph, Braintree. For those of you who are in Lynn, Malden, Everett, welcome to our interview with the Republican candidate. You heard the name already. He's already there for November 6th, Mr. J. MacMahon. And we got to say good morning to Mr. J for the first time who joined us, wherever he is on Zoom.
Well, good morning. It's good to be here with you.
Yes, I'm very glad to hear that. And Mr. A. MacMahon, that's my first time talking to you. The last time I was talking to Mr. Joff. And he went and win the September 6th primary. Look like, if I'm talking to him again, man, November 8th, it will be a jackpot at this time. So let's start. Let's get the ball rolling.
Okay.
Mr. J. MacMahon, for the listeners of Radio Teleplanet Compa who are listening to us worldwide on YouTube right now, YouTube, if you type Harold Marius, or Facebook Harold Marius, or Radio Teleplanet Compa, we are online, planetcompa.com. You can listen to us on audio now, 641-741-196, wherever you are. You got access to the interview with Mr. J. MacMahon. Can you tell my listeners a little bit about your background, Mr. J. MacMahon?
Yes. I'm a trial attorney.
Mm-hmm.
In my younger days, I went to University of Massachusetts. I earned my Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration, and then I went into law school, Suffolk University Law School, graduated from there. I've been a lawyer for 35 years, and prior to being a lawyer, I was a police officer on Cape Cod, and I was also with the Sheriff's Office, so I've got some law enforcement background. I was also in management and businesses. I ran an oil company. I was a credit manager in one of the largest banks on Cape Cod. And I also was the payroll manager for Cape Cod Hospital. We had over 2,000 employees. So I have some business background. I was also in the military. I was a lieutenant in the military police in the Army National Guard. And I received training on how to command regiments at battalion level. And it's at times could be over 1,000 people. So I have experience to deal with large organizations. I have law enforcement experience, and I have trial attorney experience, 35 years in every level of court in Massachusetts, both state and federal. I've been before federal agencies, state boards and commissions, and municipal. So I've been around. I know just about every aspect of the law. I've handled it everywhere. I have been in every court where the Attorney General practices law here in Massachusetts.
Wow, let me translate a little bit for my listeners. And Mbapka traduit tout ça le dit, mais parce que monsieur, he has a long record, so it will be hard for me to say the whole thing. But it's very important. People heard what he has to say. So, m'a parlé avec M. J. MacMahon, qui c'est lui-même qui est républicain candidat, qui pourra aller dans l'élection 8 novembre cap vini, très bientôt, depuis le passé, c'est attorney general. So, me demande lui pour me faire parler de background, son long procès, et où est son aigle, il a assez de 35 ans depuis la pratiquer la loi, et puis credit manager, and so on. Donc, nous avons un peu de temps, un peu de minutes pour nous faire parler avec M. J. MacMahon. We have a few minutes to talk to him because he has a long record. So that's what we was asking him about his background. So you're going for Attorney General. For the listeners, for people who are listening to me right now who don't know what's an Attorney General do, what an Attorney General do?
The Attorney General is the top law enforcement official in the state. The Attorney General is in charge of the entire legal apparatus within the state and sets law enforcement policy. The department has many divisions. one of the premier divisions is law enforcement and law enforcement policy. How we're going to enforce the laws, how we're going to prosecute them. So that's what the Attorney General does, and the Attorney General is elected by the people and answerable only to the people. Some states, the Attorney General is appointed by the governor, but most of the states and in here in Massachusetts, the Attorney General is elected. So if the Attorney General is not doing a good job, according to the people, they can vote him out of office.
Aha. Demandé M. MacMahon qui rôle en attorney général, qui ça le fait. Attorney général, c'est ça, le top law enforcement. C'est lui-même qui est en charge pour capable make sure que loi exécutée proprement. Donc, et les femmes connaissent tout, Wally, c'est pour le prosécuter et moun pour la loi là. Et pas bien, des côtés, c'est le gouverneur qui mettait attorney général. Mais en général, c'est le peuple là qui choisit attorney général. That's the people who choose attorney general. So I got a question for you because I know you work as a police officer in the 1970s.
Right.
What do you think of the situation of the individuals' right of our first responders, heroes, I can call them these days? What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, first responders, in 2020, before the pandemic and when the pandemic first hit and there was no vaccines or anything, our state troopers, our municipal police officers, firefighters, nurses, doctors in the hospitals and emergency rooms, all heroes. And in my eyes, they are still heroes. But now we've got some crazy things that have been going on in this state. We've got some the vaccine mandates. And if police officers, for some reason or another, who were heroes 2 years ago, if they don't take the take the vaccine, they're being fired. I'm against that. And when I become the Attorney General, I'm going to make sure that these police officers, state troopers, and firefighters, and EMTs, and nurses, and doctors, all who got fired because they refused to take the vaccine, I'll make sure they get their job back, and I'll fight to get retroactive pay. I'll do the same. I will stand with unions and union members who have been fired because of the vax mandate. To me, this is still a free country, and they have a right to take it and a right to refuse it. The government has no authority under the Constitution to force a vaccine mandate on the citizens.
And that's why J. MacMahon fait nous connaître que me demandé lui qui ça le pensait de parce que il y a un pile firefighters, il y a un pile state troopers, police officers qui révoquaient parce que étaient refusé prendre vaccin ou qu'on est en 2020 si tellement et maladie a tué monde et puis qu'on y a yo vinn passer un mandate, vaccine mandate pour capable prendre vaccin, il y a un pile qui révoqué. Il dit lui-même l'elle devenu attorney général tout firefighters, police, state troopers, SARIA, MIT qui révoquait l'a fait tout retourner dans poste. Donc c'est ça attorney et candidate for attorney general talking about Mr. J. MacMahon. Other question, if you were the attorney general, I think on November 8th, so by 9 p.m. we'll find out if you were the attorney general, what would you do differently?
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, I will stand with, as we said, with our first responders. We've got a problem in this state. We have taken away qualified immunity from our first responders. I don't know whoever thought that was a good idea, but we have done that in what was called the Police Reform Act. I'm going to look into that because that has to be changed. We either have to have it by statute or we have to get rid of that police reform law so that our first responders have the protection of qualified immunity. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to protect public safety. I understand from minority community leaders that they are sick and tired of the crime wave and the drugs that are flooding into their neighborhoods and killing their people. And I have to tell you something. The present Attorney General and the person on the other side who wants to replace her have come up with proposals to defund the police. I'm going to do just the opposite. I'm going to fight against defunding the police. I want to put more police in minority neighborhoods. They deserve the same level of public safety as everybody else in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I am committed to stopping the crime where we see it, no matter whose neighborhood it is. When the drugs that are pouring into this state because of the open border problem we have on the southern national border, I'm going to make it difficult for those people to do their business, that is drug dealers, to do their business in Massachusetts.
That's the next question I was going to ask you regarding this situation, because when you're talking about the office of the Attorney General, the agenda, and I hope it's your agenda too, to prosecute criminals. So what will happen if a municipal police officer who arrests someone for a crime and a district attorney has said they will not prosecute? What will you do?
Well, I want to thank you for that question, because
I know this is your area.
It's right in my area, and I'll tell you what, I have addressed that before, and it goes like this. I'll do two things.
Yes.
You know, let me just preface this. I don't know why people run to become prosecutors, district attorneys, and they say, vote for me, and I won't do the job. I don't get that. But I'll tell you what, there are quality of life crimes that some district attorneys have said they will not prosecute. And the problem with the quality of life crimes is that they affect downtown areas. They affect business areas. For instance, if you have a district attorney that says, we're not going to prosecute shoplifting, we're not going to prosecute pickpocketing, it's too menial, and besides, poor people. Basically, they're saying poor people are doing this. No, they're not. Bad people are doing this. Criminals are doing this. But what happens is when it starts that there's crime in downtown areas, and the police are told, do not arrest because we're not going to prosecute, we have a problem. And what I will do to at least immediately address the situation is that I will send an assistant attorney general into the district courts, because the attorney general can preempt any case in the court at any stage, and we will take over those quality of life crimes from the arrest all the way through to the conclusion of the case. That's the first thing I'll do. And the second thing I'll do is lead the recall petition to throw that district attorney out of office and get somebody in there that's going to do the job.
C'est ça, Monsieur MacMahon qui me demandait, si par exemple un police officer a arrêté un monde pour un crime, et que district attorney a dit non, pas le prosécuter lui-même qui c'est attorney général qui ça l'a fait, il dit monsieur, quel que soit crime dans mon fait, même si c'est shoplifting que fait qu'on est, non, ça c'est malheureux fait, pas vrai, non, c'est bagaille monde qui pas bon fait, et quel que soit ça, il y a lui-même la prosécuter lui comme attorney general. And now that brings me to this question, do you have some disagreement, some positions you disagree with the Attorney General that right now?
Okay, so I'm just appalled that the current Attorney General, Maura Healey, doesn't support law enforcement. Mm-hmm. She stands for the basic premise that the other party stands for, defunding the police. They don't support the police. They have a feeling that qualified immunity somehow police officers in this state doesn't deserve it. They use as a basis for that their argument what happened in Minneapolis 2 years ago, but those facts are completely different in Minneapolis than here in Massachusetts. No one's died in police custody in Massachusetts for several generations. In fact, no one's died in New England in police custody for several generations. So I disagree with their lack of support and their attempts apparently to punish the police. I'm going to do just the opposite. I'm going to support the police. But I'm also very concerned with how this present Attorney General, Maura Healey, who wants to be governor, how she handled the drug scandal in the state police labs that affected us several years ago. We have 2 state police labs. Both of them were subject to drug scandal, and the Eastern lab was with Annie Dukin, and the Western lab in Amherst was with Sonia Farak. And what happened was there's a huge scandal. A lot of people were falsely imprisoned, and instead of coming out and openly exposing this corruption, the Attorney General's office tried to cover it up, and it got worse. And we have judges who were declaring that this Attorney General and their lieutenants had lost their moral compass, did irreprehensible conduct before the court, committed fraud upon the court. And you would think that the people who were involved in this would have been fired and put in jail. No one was fired, no one was prosecuted, no one was put in jail. And the real painful part of all this, the 2 people who were mostly involved in it, they were promoted. They went from 5-figure incomes to 6-figure incomes. And I think that's a disgrace. And I want to tell your listeners, if they want to see a full documentary of it with news footage and everything else, to go to Netflix and watch How to Fix a Drug Scandal.
Okay.
If you go to Netflix and watch How to Fix a Drug Scandal, it'll explain the whole process, and it affects the Attorney General even now.
So let's see your top issues you are running for November 8th. How are you going to implement them?
Okay, well, first of all, I've got several top issues. I have the one is the public safety for all neighborhoods in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The way to do that is to encourage police. See, right now, we've got a serious problem. We've got people who are retiring early from police departments, and we don't have anybody, no recruits are filling these positions. They're trying to recruit officers, but people know with no qualified immunity, this is a serious problem with police departments. Another thing that's affecting us in Western Massachusetts, you have a lot of small towns with small police departments, and they have provisional officers. But the police reform bill requires excessive training and retraining for things that these officers already know. I'm doing all that. And I'm going to tackle the opioid crisis. And you want to hear the plan on the opioid crisis?
Yes, that's something
Okay.
that's something very important when you talk about the opioid crisis, because I know that's something very touchy to you, because
Yes.
you have a member of your family that get hit by the opioid crisis. But we know there are some who are very addicted, who want their lives back.
Absolutely.
How are you going to do that?
Okay, well, first of all, there's got to be a 3-prong approach to solve this opioid crisis. And I don't mind doing this front and center, because someone has to step up and do this. When Maura Healey first became the Attorney General, we were having 500 deaths a year in Massachusetts. It's up to 4,500. Those are thousands of people each year, more people dying. Now, some of the liberal elites will pass it off and say, well, it's only about 10% increase. But what they're forgetting is it's really 110, because it's not just a small number of increase, it's a whole batch of people, 4,500 people who are dying, and next year it's probably going to be the same amount or more. So we've got tremendous casualties from this problem. And the way to address it is with effective rehabilitation. Now, this is Massachusetts. We're the medical capital of the world. We know how to resolve opiate addiction. We know how to cure it. It just takes more time and more money. Private pay programs have an 85% success rate. However, the government programs have almost a 99% failure. Now, we can resolve that, but the government programs have to become like the private pay programs. In other words, we have to have a better effort at what we're doing. And we can do that. So people say, well, how are you going to do it as the Attorney General? Well, first of all, those failure programs, I'm going to investigate them. I'm going to force them to deliver back money that they've wasted because they've held themselves to be frauds. If they're saying if you send people to us, we'll resolve their opioid problems, and they're not. So we need effective programs. I know families who have loved ones that have gone through the programs, the government programs, more than 25 times. I know people who've gone through private pay programs and were cured the first time through. As you had stated earlier, people want their lives back. What I want to see is take people, and from what I hear from rehabilitative physicians, we can do this right, but we need to have the will to do it right. People want their lives back, and once they come through and they are delivered and cured of this opioid addiction, they become prosperous taxpayers, and that's what we want to see for people of the Commonwealth.
Voilà, c'est un point qui est extrêmement important pour lui-même parce que il peut dire un membre féminin dans les affaires opioïdes là, comment pour le frapper, il dit que lui-même 85% de succès dans combattre opioïdes. Alors que le gouvernement bon côté parle 99% failure, dit que the bottom line it's rehabilitation, c'est travail avec eux, mettez-nous en doigt côté capable bailler soin pour capable joindre vie au back. Now it is seulement 7 minutes. We only have 7 minutes left. Let's talk about the Haitian community, and I think it's important to me. And when we say the Haitian community, what people don't know, the Haitian community has a lot of Republican people also in the community, you know, because I got a lot of friends who are Republican. But my question, do you believe the Democrats have the best interest in representing the Haitian community?
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's look at it this way. One of the most recent famous Republicans was President Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. President Reagan ran for office. He asked the voters. He said, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? If you are, continue to go with the Democrats. If not, you've got nothing to lose in voting for us." So let's look at the programs. What do I stand for? And what does the other side stand for? Well, I stand for law enforcement. I think the people of the Haitian communities want to be able to walk out on their streets without being hustled by drugs and thugs and people in the neighborhood that want to do evil to them and their children. They want the same dignity that anybody else has in any other neighborhood. And so what I want to do is I want to get rid of the thugs, the people that would hassle the law-abiding citizens, the people that would rob and steal from them, the gun violence. And by the way, somebody said, how are you going to end the gun violence? Well, I'll tell you what. I read the newspaper every morning, and every other day there's gun violence in the city of Boston. Someone dies. Someone is killed by someone who shot them. Sometimes they catch the shooter, sometimes they don't. But a vast majority of times, they catch the person who perpetrated the crime. So why does it stop there? We want to know where that gun came from. How did that guy get the gun? Don't plead it out. Figure out, trace it, go back, and let's find out where this source of illegal guns are coming from. Because one thing we do know, they didn't buy it from the corner gun store because that store is heavily regulated by state officials and federal officials. When they sell a firearms, there's so much paperwork. Everybody knows where that firearm is even now. So how are these illegal guns coming in? We want to take these people who are using these guns and we want to thoroughly investigate, trace the gun back, and find out where the source is and go after the source. That's how we clean up gun violence in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts without infringing on good people's civil rights.
Yes, but the question was, do you believe the Democrats has the best interest in representing the Haitian community?
No, they're not. They're not helping at all. If anything, if you look at their policies of defunding the police, they are hurting the Haitian community. May I add, also the Asian community, also the African American community. Hey, by the way, every citizen in the Commonwealth, they are affecting us when they decide to go after, for whatever their agenda is, going after law enforcement. I will put an end to that, and everybody will have a safe and enjoyable and peaceful community.
Donc, il dit que il pas quoi que les démocrates représentent meilleur intérêt pour capable représenter la communauté haïtienne. Il t'a parlé aussi de grande violence et on série de monde qu'avec zam nan mais qui pratiquer la violence dans City Boston nan. Eh bien, lui même t'a besoin faire moun connaître c'est qui côté rejoindre gun ça, c'est trace côté gun nan sorti, c'est à partir de là pour capable joindre une solution à lui-même et puis me devine demander lui, me retourner sur question encore côté il te dit on regarde Ronald Reagan. So when you mentioned Ronald Reagan earlier, I think to me, he's the only U.S. president who gave us the opportunity to reach for the green card. A lot of Haitian people went in the 87, I think, and that was a blessing at that time too. But I don't know if 2022, if they will let him do a such thing. But he's the only one, to tell you the truth. Just give him credit for what he did. And he was a Republican, based on what he did. So what can the Haitian community do to help you become the next Attorney General?
Right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm very concerned for them. I want to hear their individual concerns. If they reach out to my campaign, any invites to any groups, I will come out and speak with them. I will listen to them. Right now, we're currently holding fundraisers because, as you know, the people on the other side, they get a lot of money from a lot of organizations. And some of it is called dark money because it comes in from PACs. But right now, the law is legal that they can accept that money, and they are. It's a lot of out-of-state money. And so I have to match that. I don't need to match it dollar for dollar, but I do have to match it effectiveness for effectiveness. In other words, I need to have television commercials and radio commercials just like they do. I don't need to necessarily have as many, but I have to have them. I have effective ones. So we need funds. We need votes. I mean, if we don't get the votes, everything else doesn't make any difference. So I need the votes, and I want to tell you something. In the end, and bottom line, for the Haitian community, I really am their candidate, and if they support me, they're gonna like that the most, and they'll have a friend on Beacon Hill.
That's it.
Anytime, I will be open to all the public.
Well, for 100,000 Haitians who listening to us every week, Mr. J, we wish you good luck. And November 8th is it's like tomorrow, and I know you're going up there to knock on the doors to present yourself. So, in case if somebody want to reach the headquarters, is there a number they can reach in order to be how can I call that somebody a volunteer? What's the number?
Okay, it's 508. 599099, and my website is www.attorneyjmcmahon, ATORNEYJAYMCMAHON.com.
That's right. Well, thank you very much. That was a pleasure talking to you today, and I hope everybody in Boston, in the South and North, heard a lot about you today, and hopefully we can talk again before November 8th. Thank you very much.
Right,
thank you again, Mr. Flanica.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, see you. Take care, Jay.
Wap koute Radio Télé Planète Compas sous 89.3 FM dans